to the chopper!
Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the beautiful writer, Leah Welch. Leah, how you doing today?
It's a good day.
Every day looking down at the grass instead of up at it's a good day.
Hell yeah.
So for those of you that don't know, Leah wrote In the Light of the Moon, as well as she's working on the upcoming Good Girl. Now, there's not much we could talk about Good Girl at this point, but with In the Light of the Moon, is there any way that people can stream this, or where can people check this out at?
I think I have a trailer up on my Twitter page, but right now, nothing yet. I think that they're going to release it hopefully during Halloween.
Okay. Awesome. Please keep me updated on that too. And if you can, send me the link to the trailer. I want to put it down here in the description.
Okay,
Yeah, I also have all of Leah's social media links down here, as well as the GoFundMe. It's GoFundMe or Indiegogo for Good Girl?
GoFundMe.
GoFundMe. Okay, I have that information down here as well. That way you guys can be a part of this. Make sure you're clicking the links down here in the description. Make sure you're following Leah on social media. So what can you tell us about the upcoming Good Girl? What, without obviously putting your foot in your mouth, what are you allowed to talk about Good Girl that we can know?
I can tell you that it is an all-female and non-binary cast and crew, which I was very proud of. It's a horror short about a woman who breaks up with her boyfriend on her birthday and invites a cat into her house. But when she kind of mistreats the cat by telling it no to everything that cats do, the cat kind of takes revenge.
Ooh.
Oh, and there are no VFX. Everybody's kind of shocked to know that everything was done practically. Like my makeup girls, Roxanne and Rachel, are amazing. My actress who plays the creature was in makeup, head to toe body paint from like 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. So it looks
that is so dope.
Stunning. Yeah. And she has her little, I won't ruin it, but it looks great.
Well, this is something that I've contributed to. This is something that I am very, very proud to be a part of. Like you said, not only because Leah is a friend of mine, but when you have an all-female and non-binary cast, this is something that we can all be proud of. And it's something that in the horror world, I've said this since the beginning, horror has always been very female-centric. And I don't mean that in a sexist way. I mean, in a lot of horror movies, you have the final girl. I mean, it's always the girl coming back to kick the living dog shit out of the guy. So, I mean...
Girls are tough. Women are
hell yeah, they are.
Beasts.
Man, my wife has given birth to 3 kids. Nobody can ever tell me a woman is not tough, because that shit it hurt me, so I'm so proud of the horror genre. It's always been ahead of its time. And sure, you have a lot of the slashers with, you got to have girl nudity in it and whatnot. But for me, it's just like, you got to do it. You got to always, in the horror world, the final girl is always the most Ripley, Sydney. I mean, you got them all. The most Nancy, the most badass women of all time.
All of them. And people who are behind the scenes and they're doing crew or they're trying to staff up projects. I staffed mine with all female and non-binary, so you can't say that it cannot be done. Like, contact me. I have like the best crew and the best actors that I love and adore. If you need anybody, reach out to me. I will be more than happy to recommend.
And like I said, the links are right down here in the description, guys. So make sure you're clicking these. Even if you don't, make sure you're following her on Twitter, Instagram. It's always fun content. We got to know each other through that. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Tori. Thank you, Tori, for hooking us up with each other. It was awesome.
Tori.
I'm so excited.
Tori's the sweetest guy.
He is. You guys have seen him on the podcast as well. Now, because of him, we're doing this episode. And something else is special about this episode. Not only do we get to talk about Good Girl, but we get to talk about a horror movie that I have yet to talk about on this podcast. And so we know what you got coming up in the future with, In the Light of the Moon and Good Girl. We know what you're doing now, getting everything prepared for that. But now, Leah, I want to take it back to the past. And I want to talk about what got you started in the horror genre. Your first horror movie, and your first horror movie was?
Believe me, I know this comes as a shock. Predator. When it came out to theaters, so in June of 1986, that's awesome.
That's my dude. I love me some Predator. I am a huge Predator fan.
It's such a great, solid story. It's It's fun. So my dad, I'll tell you the story as my dad and my brother have told me. My brother's a year older. My dad was on babysitting duty, and he really wanted to see this movie, and he just took my brother and I to go see it. It was a packed house because it was opening weekend. I was 5 years old. We got all of the candy, all of the popcorn, all of the pop, and we were a little bit late coming, so we're like near the front of the theater, sitting down, and the movie's about to start. And I go, Dad, I need to go to the bathroom. And so he takes me, being the due diligent father that he is, he takes me to the bathroom, and he complained to me when I asked him about this memory. He's like, you know how long it took me to see the beginning of Predator again? It was years. I was like, I'm so sorry, Dad.
That's so funny. But I mean,
it's so
like, your
good.
dad is so rad
My
because
dad's pretty cool. Yeah, I love him.
the picture
Go
you
ahead.
sent me, I just looked at it. It was so dope. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
So it's my dad. He's talking about, it's my dad in the 80s, and he went to go see the critters, and they had a life-size critter outside that he got his picture next to. My dad went to a bunch of conventions and stuff in the 80s and 90s, and that's where he got all of these things. Oh, and he ran 2 video shops, which is something that
You and I do have in common.
Yeah. So I watched all of the horror movies because those are the ones that I wasn't supposed to watch, but I watched them. I remember Demon Wind. I watched House. I watched Predator again when it came out. House 2. Gate. The Pit, that Canadian film that's really weird.
Oh man, I love The Gate too. That's a film that I can talk about all day. It's such an amazing film.
Ghoulies, Dr. Giggles, Halloween, Pumpkinhead.
Dr. Giggles. I forgot about Dr. Giggles. Wow.
Yeah.
So intense. See,
very intense.
I love the fact that started for you with Predator, because Predator is so amazing. And there's so many, I mean, like, you got the bro high five with Arnold Schwarzenegger at the beginning, which has become a meme. It's, the bro high five, and then they got the arm wrestling while they're doing it. I absolutely love that. Which scene, though, from Predator was it that you think affected you the most?
Oh, so you asked me this, and I like racked my brain. What is the scene? And it's any scene that has that sound to it, the Predator sound. It still creeps me out. It was done so well. I don't know who made the sound. I wish I would have looked it up, but that sound design is beautiful. Thank you, whoever did that. Thank you.
And just so you guys know what that sound is, this is that sound right now. That was probably really weird for me and you just sitting here, but I just put that over top. Me and her didn't hear that, so we're just sitting here. But that is the sound that she's talking about, the Predator noise. And one thing for me that's always stood out about this movie is, we're going to get to which kill affected you the most, but there are so many great kill scenes in this movie. And one that always stood out to me, you know what? We'll get there in a minute, because I want to talk about these together. But when someone brings up the Predator to you, what is the first thing that pops in your head?
The actual Predator, like that costume, how tall and frightening. And then, of course, there are spoilers. When he takes it off, blew my mind.
And the best part of that is, right at that moment, Arnold Schwarzenegger delivers the best line ever when he's just like,
"You one ugly motherfucker."
I love that line so much.
Yes. There was such detail and such love put into that movie, like for the whole armband, for the time code that they did, to have that language.
Oh, and even when he gets cut and he uses that to heal himself. When he's got, after he's been shot, he heals himself with it. Like, you're right. And here's a fun fact for you. When they did the special effects, like when they had the guy in the costume, when they originally did that, it was Jean-Claude Van Damme that did that. But when he found out his face wouldn't be shown in the film, he quit. And I think that's so funny to me.
He missed out. But thank goodness, because we got something completely different. I learned that in filmmaking, anything that is quote unquote a mistake it turns out making the film better. Like I've heard of people who have lost their footage, but because of insurance, they got to reshoot certain scenes and make them better. Like use those mistakes, create something more.
I mean, sometimes, let's go Bob Ross. There's no mistakes. It's just happy accidents.
Mistakes. Happy accidents. Not enough blood in this scene. Next time.
Yes, I love it. I love another Bob Ross fan. I got to give it up to you for that. It's just happy accidents.
Who doesn't? Yeah, such a positive person.
Right.
He's ex-military. He's former military.
Yes, he was, and he said that because of his time in Vietnam, he'd never be angry again.
Yeah.
He said that's what
a transformative statement.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Bob Ross. That guy was amazing. Such an amazing human being. Gone too soon. So we talked about which scene from Predator affected you the most, Leah. But what would you say your favorite scene from The Predator is?
Oh, like the favorite death scene or favorite scene?
Just favorite scene in general.
I love, because I'm a stickler for detail, I love when he rubbed the mud all over himself. That's not a sexual anything. That's just like, so smart. That's such a smart
I just think it's funny how like he goes down the waterfall and then he's in there and he says it out loud to himself. He didn't see me. And then he covers himself. Like I'm with you. I love it. It's genius.
I loved it. And I loved the Spanish woman. I can't remember her name right now. Like her as a character really influenced how I wrote female characters, because she's strong, she's badass. She knows what she needs to be afraid of and just tries her damnedest to escape.
And I love how she speaks Spanish for the first part. And then she's like, oh, hey, I also speak English, guys.
Exactly. I've had a lot of people in my scripts not speak English or do sign language because of that influence, that very Leah Welch at 5 years old being influenced by that movie.
See, and I think it's amazing. That's something that how a horror movie can influence you as a writer, like your first one especially, because that's what gave you that adrenaline. That's what gave you that feeling of, oh, this is so awesome, this is amazing, and then you really run with it after that. And a lot of people I've talked to that are writers, directors, producers, actors, they talk about how that first movie influenced them so much in the decisions that they make in their own films. And to me, that's such an honor to these films to know that they influenced you that much,
Yeah. The feature that I just wrote and directed has a Spanish woman in it, and she doesn't give the other guy the time of day, like hardly even speaks to him because he doesn't deserve to be spoken to. It's like Predator.
Right. So is that in Good Girl, or is that By the Light of the Moon? In the Light of the Moon. Yeah. In the Light of the Moon. Okay. I can't wait to check these out. I'm so excited for these.
I'm so excited to show it to everyone. It was a labor of love. I raised the $30,000 it took to make a film. My brother pawned his guitars for me and helped finance the film. I sold my comic book collection. Like I sold everything that I owned just to help fund this movie because I believed in it so much.
And I can't wait to check it out. And I hope, like I said, you guys should be following her because I have the links here in the description. But if not, she will keep me updated on everything. And as soon as we have availability for these trailers, whatnot, I promise you I will be delivering those to you guys as well through social media. So if you're not just following her and you're not following me on social media yet, my Twitter and Instagram are down here in the description too. So make sure you're giving us both a follow. Now it's time to get dark here, Leah. We talked about which scene affected you.
Yes.
What your favorite scene is, but now we're going to talk about kills. We can't talk about horror without talking about kills.
No.
What is your favorite kill in Predator?
I knew that I was in for a ride when they go into the jungle and they see those skinned bodies hanging upside down from the tree. I was like, wait, can we swear on this podcast?
Oh, of course.
I was like, not that I knew swear words when I was a little girl, but I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
What am I in for? Because if this is what has already happened, where can the story go? And it's like this storytelling element where if I start here, like way up here, I have to go higher than that.
Yeah. You can't start high and go low. It doesn't work that way.
No. So seeing those bodies, it was master craftsmanship.
And this is right after Alan Dutch Schaefer, Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, we are not mercenaries. This is a rescue mission. Then they go in there and these people are skinned alive. Then automatically they become mercenaries and they go.
Yeah, right.
still in that village. Like, this is so funny. I was like,
changed.
we're just a rescue team. We're not a mercenary team. Then they just go there and completely annihilate everybody in that camp.
Yes.
One kill that's always stuck out to me, and I don't know why, but I just think this is so awesome, is when he gets his arm shot off by the predator and the arm falls, but it keeps shooting the gun as it falls and it lands on the ground. Like, you talk about detail, being attention to detail. How the arm is still shooting when it's on the ground, to me, has always just been so brilliant and so awesome.
Yeah. Smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. So the thing about horror, like when I'm writing horror and I just killed somebody in my horror script, I laugh pretty loud because to me, I was like, oh, this is great. I'm brilliant. Usually I don't. And when the thing is done, I'm like, maybe it's shit. I don't know. But because horror is art, it's not reality. And so when you can differentiate horror in that way, you can enjoy the ride more, because horror and magical realism are like this, right? That's how I feel when I write, and that's how I feel when somebody dies. Like in The Shining, when all of that blood comes out of the elevators, they got away with that from the rating system because they were like, it's not blood, it's art.
Right. And
right?
It's funny you talk about that, because something I've talked about on here before in earlier episodes, I haven't talked about it in a while. I think that the people that watch horror at a young age are more grounded in reality, because we learn at a young age what the difference is between fantasy and reality. When we really get into horror films at a young age, we learn that this is not real. This is, this is a fantasy. When you try to shield people from it, I think that's when it becomes an issue. Just like everything else, it should be about education. It shouldn't be about hiding. This is the horror movie. It's meant just like a haunted house. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to scare you. It's meant to make your adrenaline run. But you got to know the difference. That this is not real. This is a fantasy. This is just like a video game. If this stuff happens in real life, you don't come back. There's no rewind. There's no extra life. So to me, it's always been about education instead of shielding. And I think horror is the perfect example in that.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to close my curtains a little bit because I'm just like
no, you're totally fine.
Of whiteness. I'm okay. I can stay here.
No, you look perfect. But if you want to shut the curtains to shield your eyes, you're totally fine.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that the afternoon sun would shine so brightly. I'm usually in the
you're
dark
totally fine. So for those of you, we do have right here the Blu-ray of Predator, which you can see here. And soon the hunt will begin. We got Alan Dutch Schaefer back here, like, get to the chopper! No, get down! He's right here hanging out. So Leah, we talked about Predator, how that was your first horror movie. That was your real introduction into horror. But now, Leah, I want to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie, Leah? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
I knew you would ask this because I watched your other episodes, and I was like, how can he ask that question? That's the hardest question. Like, somebody asked Edgar Wright that question, and he like came up with 1,000 movie lists. So
well, it's funny, and because you've watched the podcast, but also in the emails and the text that we've shared, I never tell anybody I'm going to ask them that question. Because I don't want you to plan the answer ahead of time. That's why I don't include it in the questions that I ask you, because I want a genuine on-the-spot answer. I feel that's where I get the best answers. So I got to know your favorite.
You're asking me to choose between like John Carpenter and Ari Aster. Like, I don't know. I don't have an answer, but I'll give you this. The most recent horror movie that I've seen that I've absolutely adored is called Tigers Are Not Afraid. It's on Shudder. It's directed by Issa Lopez, and it's a story about these young orphans where the Mexican cartel has killed their family, and their parents kind of haunt them, but also there's the girl is granted 3 wishes by her teacher.
I was gonna say, be careful with what you say.
Yeah, and that's all in the description on Shudder. So it's just
Tigers Are Not Afraid it's a very deep movie.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I want to say here real quick. For those of you that don't have Shudder, Shudder is so worth every single penny that you put into it. Shudder, I watch a new movie on Shudder at least 2 or 3 times a week. They also have the Creep Show TV show, which I think is phenomenal. They're doing a great job on that. Some of my favorite movies that have come out in the last couple of years have been Shudder films.
Shudder is great in like all things. I just watched their documentary on 80s horror films. It's like 3 or 4 hours long. In Search of Darkness, Searching for Darkness is so good. It was so good that they're making a part 2.
Well, they also have one thing I've always bragged about with Shudder. One of my favorite documentaries they have on there is called Cursed Films. Have you watched that yet?
Yes, I have.
So good. It's so good to watch all the behind the scenes of the films that we consider cursed, like The Omen, The Exorcist, The Twilight Zone, and see all Poltergeist.
Poltergeist was like, we can't say anything because it'll ruin everything in the documentary.
Right, but you have to watch. I love their defense of it. How they're like, everybody was doing that.
I know,
like,
exactly.
everybody's
but
doing it.
True, but it's so true because on the film set, that is what happened.
That's how it went.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I got 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
Whenever we talk about a franchise, I always ask this question. Since this is a franchise, what is your, and I know you're a comic book fan. So Predator went from the films to the comics and it became huge in the comic book world, even before you had Alien vs. Predator. I mean, Alien vs. Predator started as the comic, then moved to the video game, then moved to the screen. So out of the Predator franchise, which is your favorite film?
Predators. Yeah.
Ooh, good choice.
I know. It's just this. Okay, spoilers, obviously, but you're the ones listening to a horror podcast. It's this idea of having the world's best killers on a planet together, and they have to defeat the universe's best killer.
Mm-hmm.
What a great hook! And really big spoiler. And they do something that is just so brilliant and isn't often done in a screenplay. They have the third man, and it works so well. He comes in like in the middle of Act 2 to. You've seen it, right? I'm not ruining this for you.
Are you talking about?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and he takes them and it's like, oh, they're rescued, but they're not rescued. It's such a great twist, and it's so ingrained with who those characters are and what that world is.
Are we talking about Topher Grace, Eric Foreman from that 70s show? His character?
No, that's a different twist. That's a third act twist. The third man is Lawrence Fishburne's character.
Oh, Lawrence Fishburne when they're in the ship.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, now I know what you're talking about.
Came out of nowhere. And you're like, oh, they're rescued, they're saved, but then they have to escape him. I was like, that is so genius.
Well, yeah, because he's like, I'm going to use you guys to save myself.
Yeah. So
I love Lawrence Fishburne. So we're all like, we can trust him. It's Lawrence Fishburne.
Exactly. So I took that. I recently wrote a sexual thriller. I sold it. I can't tell who I sold it to yet because I signed a contract, NDA and everything, but I sold it to a streaming service. And it answers the question, what if Lolita, the nymphette, what if Lolita were Halloween Mike Myers' babysitter when he was a little kid? So I took kind of that premise and made it into a movie. But I took this idea of the third man and a twist upon a twist that Predators does, and I did something similar. Or at least I had that in mind for the feature that I wrote.
That is awesome, and congratulations on that.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
That's so rad.
I just love writing.
Well, when you can spill the beans on that, make sure you hit me up so I can spread that too, because I'm super excited for you.
Deal. Yeah.
Yeah, deal. For sure. So, I do want to, there's one last question I ask, and I always end the podcast with this question. We're going to go back to Predator, and we're going to rank this on a skull count, 0 to 5 skulls, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. Now, as a reminder, we are not being critics right now. We're not ranking it on cinematic masterpiece. We're not ranking it on acting, directing. This is just strictly what this movie means to you and how this movie affected you. So 0 to 5 skulls, you can use half and quarters. What would your ranking of Predator be?
Oh, 5. It's such a ride of a film. I'll give 5 reasons. It's such a ride of a film. It has the best catchphrases that are character-driven catchphrases. The kills are just so well executed. I mean, the gore that's in that movie, kudos to the entire makeup department. Thank you for that movie. The character names, oh my God, the character names are so good.
Well, you get the one where the guy's got the thing on his arm, and then he looks up and it goes to his head and it just blows his fucking head off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so awesome.
I know. And then the story, of course, the story. It's mono-e alien.
Well, and I do love at the end when Predator, when he does take the mask off, he's like, you know what? It's you and me. Let's do this.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
let's go. Me and you. I'm not going to use my shit. You're not going to use yours. Let's just go. Me and you.
Yeah. And you get this, so something that I loved in the film Predators is you get this different view of what that race of species are, because it's one different section against another different section, right? Because there's two different types of predators, at least in that confined universe. I just thought that was just.
Yeah, and they like pick on the smaller one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they almost like bully him. Like, look at this little weak ass predator, like tickling his feet while he's tied up. Like, they just like bully him. It's so awesome.
I know.
See, I am a fan of Predators. I will always think that Predator is my favorite, just because at the age I was when I seen it, it was action, it was adventure, it was horror, it was sci-fi, and it really had a big effect on me. And when I heard about, you know, seeing the Predators and the Xenomorphs face off, I thought my head was going to explode, because I've always been a huge fan of Alien, a huge fan of Predator, and you put those two, it was the Freddy versus Jason complex. You can't go wrong. I don't care how shitty of a movie Freddy versus Jason is. It's Freddy and Jason in the same damn movie, man. So just enjoy their screen time together. And that's how I feel about Alien versus Predator. I'm not a huge fan of those movies, but if they're on, I will watch them, just because it's Xenomorphs and Predators going at it. That's awesome. You can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah. I would love to just dig my hands into either of those universes as a writer. It's so much fun. I'm actually, I'm sure other writers do this, but I have a story idea that takes place between the first and second Terminator film.
Yeah.
And it's Sarah and her son in South America when John is like 6 years old, and it's this very strong female mother, single mother, learning what it takes to be that specific kind of mother to that specific son. Like, preparing him for the end of the world is such. There's just meat on that bone, and I want to sink my teeth into it. Like, I want to sink my writer teeth right into it.
Like right before he gets taken away from her and she gets committed. Yeah, that would be so dope.
Yeah, I'm writing it right now as a spec, just for me, because you know, I love it. But
you got to do that.
Be taught by a bunch of guerrilla warfare guys with her young son. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Well, no, always good to keep that creative juice flowing, even if it's just for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I agree.
I do want to thank you so much again for coming on, Leah. This has been so much fun. And I've had so much fun getting to know you. Don't go anywhere though. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else. Yeah. Everybody else, keep talking horror. Stay what you are. And we'll see you guys soon.